Hey guys, I made a video and I think it hurt the feelings of a few grown men, so I think I should elaborate. But more importantly, I want to ask a huge question. What is the difference between a minor and a major comic book key? A very quick backstory on what sparked this minor little conflict here. I made this video right here, and in this video I had made the point of if you're somebody selling comic books or preparing a large mass of books, it is very important to have a plan and protect your time doing so. This was completely free advice that was meant to help people. What did I say in this video that a few people didn't like? Well, I made the claim that minor key issues are ridiculous. Real quick, before I go any further, shout out to a couple fellas in the comment section who had a difference of an opinion, but really just knew how to hold a conversation without being disrespectful, and actually seemed like they knew what they were talking about. Always a pleasure to chat with people like you guys. Now, there is some context to this statement. I gave an example of what I considered a minor key issue. That example was the first appearance of Elektra's second cousin. And I was hoping that would add enough clarity to people to not waste their time handwriting on the back of comics very insignificant minor keys. Now, another comment that really made me think this is something to further address was one person quoted me saying minor keys are ridiculous, has a wall full of minor keys. I had to double check my wall at the time and I was like, well, I think there's some discrepancy on what a minor key issue is. Why I'm further elaborating is because I want people to understand that what I say is what I believe in and what I preach. First of all, this is, number one, my personal collection and what I find aesthetically pleasing. Some of these books are not even key issues, period, much less a minor key. So his comment made no sense to me other than that there is a language barrier within the hobby, and that is what this video is about. Now, why is minor versus major key even an argumentative topic? Why is it debated? And you can always say, yeah, it's because comics are subjective and, it's art, so people are going to hold different values to different books, things like that. I actually think it comes down to this. The vocabulary of the comic book hobby is outdated. This hobby has evolved so much over the past 3 decades, and majority of its terms and definitions that are still being used are stuck in 1995. Here's some further proof of my theory here. What era of comics are we in? Modern? Modern age? What era of comics would somebody from the early 2000s say that they were in back then? There's pretty much clear definitions on platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and copper age comic books. But after then, it's like the hobby just stuck there and didn't change its vocabulary or definitions once we got to like the late 1990s. The same goes with how we define key issues. Here's my thoughts. Imagine this. Imagine going shopping for a shirt. You walk in. Hey, excuse me, do you have this in a medium? No, sir. We have extra small and we have large. One of those should work. But they don't, because the human body is more complex than just 2 sizes. The vast array of comic book characters is more complex than 2 categories, minor or major keys. Not to mention, those are constantly evolving and interchanging. Now, there is also the term blue chip key, which a blue chip key is derived from the term a blue chip stock. A blue chip stock would be something like Apple, Amazon, almost guaranteed investments and progression over a slow period of time. Amazing Fantasy 15, a Superman 1. These are also books that are used to kind of check the pulse of the comic book market, but I really don't hear the term being used all that much, and obviously this person in the comments had never heard of it. And then another commenter threw out a term that I had never heard of, which was a micro key. And I thought this was fascinating, and I love that this person used it. I've never heard it. I've never heard anybody on YouTube that I listen to use that term. I've never read it in any articles or books. Even that term, you could say, is not part of the comic collecting vocabulary because it's just not widely enough used. This book here, because of its price point, some people can't just get up and go buy, but yet it's still in the minor key category. Also, Deadpool was considered technically a minor key for some time before he really broke out into pop culture. But yet almost a year after his first appearance was making multiple cameo appearances in X-Force, creating some iconic battles and rivalries, and had his own spin-off solo series by 2 years later. I personally would not consider that trajectory of a character to be defined as a minor key character. Now, these blurred lines and examples that I just gave you are good examples of where we could just use a couple more categories. One of the things that has evolved actually is the grading categories. So if the condition of the book deserves the same type of complexity, why don't the characters in the pages? So here's my thought, theory, suggestion. Why not just have 5 key comic book categories? Micro, minor, mid, major, and blue chip. It's only 5. Most of them start with an M. I really think it's easy enough to remember. So to further kind of give you an example, I'm going to take the progression of Venom and put the key issues into these categories here. Web of Spider-Man number 18, the first cameo appearance of Eddie Brock's hands pushing Peter Parker onto the subway tracks. Micro key. Next we would have ASM 298, first appearance of Eddie Brock just as a character. I would put this in the minor key category, though 298 is also the first Todd McFarlane work on Spider-Man, so this one could get a little convoluted, or you could also define it as an artist key. Next up is going to be Secret Wars 8. That's going to be in your mid-key range. This is where the story gets interesting. If it wasn't for the symbiote, well, Eddie Brock's just a dick. It's been homaged 1,000 times, too many times, but I would put that in the mid category. Major key, ASM 300, the first full appearance of the two of them together creating Venom. Now, can this comic reach blue chip key status? I absolutely think it can. It is also important to note that a part of what defines a key issue is also its market value. And another thing that creates the market value is the condition and the variant. So what's in the blue chip category? I would say it's a 9.8 newsstand variant of the first appearance of Venom. I personally would not think it's very time efficient or useful to write on the back of a comic book, first appearance of Eddie Brock's hands pushing Peter Parker onto subway tracks or whatever. Key notations like this, I feel like, is where you could waste your time, especially when people are already using the Key Collector app when hunting comics anyway. Of course, there still can be arguments within those 5 categories, but at least they're not going to be as frequent, and maybe then we can get back to arguing about more meaningful things. The minor key versus major key thing seems like the least fun debate out of them all. So why not adapt to how the hobby is evolving? Part of that adaptation is how we communicate amongst ourselves, how we define the hobby's parts and pieces, and how we teach those parts and pieces to the new collectors entering the hobby. So let's just treat key issues with the complexity that they deserve. And if you like key issues, you might like this video here. See you on the next page.